thank you very much for the opportunity to share some time with you and with the other venerables. Can I also acknowledge Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, the Honourable Dr. John McVeigh down the front, who was taking a really close interest in what we were being served for lunch, being that part of his area. So thank you for coming along this afternoon, John, as well. This afternoon we have, as you see from your lanyards, strengthening bonds of common humanity. Before we started that, I'd like to just acknowledge Sophie Ryan and what she had to say before we broke for lunch. In fact, before we had that wonderful theatrical and almost comedic photo shoot as well. I thought was a wonderful touch to today, and just shows that there are more things that we have in common that unite us than we have divide us, and certainly taking photographs is one of those commonalities where we all try and get involved. Sophie, congratulations on not just today, but for what you're doing for youth in our region as well. Most of you, I hope, may have seen. Yeah, a round of applause for Sophie. Great. Most of you, I hope, will have seen some media over the last 48 hours or so in regard to a youth leaders program that's been put together by Toowoomba Regional Council, and that's the ages of 14 to 25. And some of what Sophie was saying about engaging youth, making sure that youth understand that they have a real purpose in our community, is part of why that program was put together. So, Sophie, I hope that if you have the spare time in your law degree, that you might be able to put your name forward as well, because you'd certainly be very welcome indeed. So we have got, as Hanif said, and thank you very much, Hanif, for organising the panellists this afternoon. I'll introduce them quickly for you, because you may not have had listened to that as we go through, and then we'll go through. Each speaker will be given a few minutes just to outline their feelings on strengthening bonds of common humanity in Toowoomba, and then we'll open up for questions from the floor. One of our panel members does have to leave at 1 o'clock, so they may not be able to stay for that, so we might actually open questions up to Letitia following her presentation. So in no particular order, but the order that I've got them on my page here, can you please welcome, and not to speak at this stage, just to stand and acknowledge your presence, Maria O'Keefe, the Chief Operating Officer, Human Services, Lifeline, Darling Downs and South West Queensland. And of course one of the supporters of today, Sergeant Scott McGrath, Darling Downs Crime Prevention Unit, and a member of the Goodwill Committee, Letitia Shelton, Chief Executive Officer of City Women, Laura Ryan, Manager Toowoomba Refugee Migrant Support Trams, Evan Reichelt, Multi-Faith Chaplaincy Coordinator USQ, and we did have, but she's not here and she's been superseded. Oh, we had Mitra on my sheet, but we do have Leah here, which is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Leah from the MDA, after a very successful Multicultural Languages and Cultural Festival, and Walk Together on the 24th of October. Let's not forget that. You might give it a plug. So our first speaker from the panel, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to give a very warm welcome to Evan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I thought I was last on the list, so I was going to draw from the wisdom of others, but thank you very much, Master Jinkung, for your hospitality, for your vision that you have for the Toowoomba, and also for humanity. It's very, very much in tune with what we do. I'm a multi-faith coordinator at the University of Southern Queensland. Simply what that means, I coordinate different faiths out the university. So as a multi-faith doesn't mean we're one homogenous faith, means that multi means many. So we're many faiths. And we're also a chaplain out there. We have 8 chaplains at USQ, 1 in Hervey Bay, 1 in Springfield and 6 in Toowoomba here. And we're looking for 1 for Ipswich when we take over Ipswich campus. So I was waiting to prepare for this, and I was just thinking for divine inspiration on something that the Lord would tell me what to say. And the only word he gave me was love. And I think well, when I came here today, Master Ching Kung was very generous in offering us these little gifts. And I looked at the words, and the word was love. And I thought, well, there you go. But I won't talk about love in itself, because we all know, well, there's so many differences about love. I can love my wife, but I can also love cake. You know, we have a different connotation to what love means. The Greeks have 5 different words for the word love. Unfortunately, the English language, we only have 1, and that covers my wife, my cake, my cat, my dog, and people. So what I want to talk about probably more is the opposite to love. And most people would think hate. But in my simple little way of thinking, to me the opposite to love is self-centeredness. Because when we love is giving of oneself. That's what love is. You can give without loving, but you can't love without giving. But self-centeredness is giving to myself. Totally thinking about myself all the time. In chaplaincy work, we hear a lot of people who have been through abusive childhoods, abusive marriages. We hear people who have just had really difficult lives. And when it all boils down to it, becomes from the selfishness or the self-centeredness of some particular people who've made others' life unbearable. So it's that self-centeredness we find in our life that is unbearable. So I think the message that we should be sending out to people and to others is not to think of ourselves all the time, but to think of others. And Master Ching Kung said it very brilliantly, that to love others is supreme. It's just what we do, what we have to do. Because we can see the results of being self-centered. We see wars, we see stabbings, we see beheadings, vile, evil things that are happening because people are thinking totally of themselves. I believe that we should work on a belief system. That if your belief system determines your character determines your behaviour. Not the other way around. We cannot behave ourselves into being good people. We cannot behave ourselves into a great belief system. It doesn't work. And then we say, never have a belief system that can be taken away from us. Keep a belief system there that can never lose. And that's why my belief system is God. My primary belief system is God. Never be taken away. Can never lose it. So to the students who come to me, I work on that belief system. The secondary belief system is yourself. Not being self-centered, but a belief in oneself. That we can achieve. That we can do it. I take reference from Sophie Ryan. That was a wonderful speech. We can do it. We have to be self-motivated. But in thinking about that, we think the more we give to others, the more we receive back to ourselves. So the most unselfish acts become an act of giving back to oneself. So I think when we look at love, think of what is termed the opposite to love, and that's self-centeredness. And I think if we all did that, maybe society would be a little bit better. So around the university, we concentrate on building up self-esteem to students. Hanif came to visit me the other day, and he was very surprised to know that we talk to people just after the exams rather than before. And I explained to him that people, after the exams, they're so upset with themselves because they haven't achieved what they want to achieve. So what we do is try and build them up again, try and allow them to achieve next time. That their belief system is not in the studies, it's not in being a student. Their belief system has to be in higher power. It has to be in God. And if they don't believe in God, well then you figure something out for yourself. But don't have anything in belief system that can be taken away. So I'd just like to leave with that. One of the things too I've learned from these forums that we've had, and I really take away, is those 4 words that we need, or those words that we need. One is please, thank you, I'm sorry, forgive me, and I love you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evan. And amongst all that, we learnt that you love your wife, cake, cat and dog as well, which is beautiful. Can we now call on, and would you please welcome Letitia Shelton, the Chief Executive Officer of City Women.
Thank you very much, Geoff, and thank you for having me here today. It's a real honour and a privilege. I'm actually at a different forum over the other side of town today, but great to be able to pop in for this time. So I do look after something called City Women in Toowoomba, and I'm not sure if many of you have heard of it, but we're a Christian-based organisation with about 250 volunteers from over 40 churches here in town, and we're simply about making Toowoomba a better place for girls and women, and it's just great to be able to do that together across this city. And I love that today on your sheet we are building bridges, sharing humanity, and the fact that everyone matters. And part of building bridges in our community is understanding some of the issues that our young girls are facing in society, because not every young girl in our city is being valued, and not every young girl feels that she matters. And we began City Women over 10 years ago after we were running a camp for teenage girls. I'd taken away 20 young girls up to the Bunya Mountains. This was our first camp that we were running. We'd worked with school teachers and chaplains in our city to just identify particular girls that needed a weekend away. And up at the Bunya Mountains over that weekend, sitting around the dinner table one night, talking to just 5 young girls, each one of those girls talked about being sexually abused in their life. And one girl just looked at me and said, "Tish, we've all been abused, we need help." And I knew that from that point on that we really needed to engage in the young people in our city and really get involved in their lives, and how could we help create a better future for them. I'm not sure if you're aware of some of the issues that our girls do face in Toowoomba, but you know, the fact that 1 in 3 girls are abused is just too many. The fact that in a 5-year period, we found that we had 570 babies born to teenage girls. Toowoomba's been known as having the highest chlamydia rate per head of population, and I don't want to say those things to put to depress us all, but they're just some of the realities of what our girls are facing and that what we're working with day in, day out. But as we're beginning to engage in their lives and build that bridge, we're seeing great hope and a lot of change, and a lot of girls actually getting their life back on track, and relationships and families being rebuilt. So it is exciting what happens when you do engage in our city. So I don't know if you can see my PowerPoint too well from there, but under City Women come 20 different organisations, and I'm just going to tell you about a few of them. I'm just going to clip ahead here. We have the saying in our organisation, how do we fight for the girls of our city? How do we create a better future for them? And some of the ways in which we've been doing that and seeking to build the bridge is creating positive media in their life, because a lot of the media that is thrown at our girls is highly sexualised, makes them feel that they're not good enough. A lot of girls face eating disorders, and that's because of the images that are put before them in the media of airbrushed women. And so we wanted to create something that actually brings forth value, beauty and purpose in the lives of our young girls. And so right here in Toowoomba, there's a team of over 50 to 60 volunteer people who work on a magazine called Bella that goes out across this city and across the nation and even into New Zealand and America. And I think that's just awesome that we've seen just volunteers rise up in our own community. In the Bella magazine team, our volunteers range for the age of 15 to 72. So our 72-year-old is actually a male man working on this Bella magazine, because he's one of the editors actually, and it's just great that we can help build that bridge and use the community to help create positive media, because it is actually vital that we we get positive media out into the girls of our city. So that's one of the programs that come under City Women that you can buy here across our city and beyond. Another program that comes under City Women is the Shine program, and we've been running this in over 30 schools in Toowoomba for the last 11 years, teaching probably thousands of girls now that they're valuable just simply because you're a human being. Because so many girls don't feel like they're valuable because they don't have a boyfriend, or maybe because nobody's ever told them that they're loved, or they think their value is based on their weight and their looks. And we've been able to bring a message into the schools that you're valuable just because you're a human being. And that's such a vitally important message for our young girls in this day and age, particularly many who come from family situations where they don't particularly feel loved or encouraged or supported. So once again, because of the volunteers who have engaged to build that bridge, and one of the things that I love, that I've had the privilege of being able to do, is really engage the older generation into our younger girls. And so with Shine, we have young volunteers in their 20s and 30s, but then we bring in the grandmas in their 70s and 80s. And I think that's an important bridge to build in our community. And one of the biggest untapped resources we have in Toowoomba is probably our 60s and above. Because that age group, they've lived life, they've been through so much, they have so much wisdom, they have a bit more of an understanding of who they are and their self-worth and their value. And using them to help our young girls has just been vital, and it's been great to be able to do that in our city. And another program that we run once a month up at Grand Central is called Bella Chicks. And we run this for young girls too, to be able to come and find a place of just support and encouragement and fun. Girls need fun. And they need to have fun without the boys. The boys are really great, but girls having fun without the boys is really important too. And just getting back to some of the simple things of skipping and playing elastics and all those things. So we don't do anything big and fancy, but we just provide an atmosphere of fun and encouragement. Once again, using volunteers in their 20s, but up to their 60s and 70s, and really involving that family in them. So it's been great to be able to build those bridges through Bella Chicks. And you can't see that photo. Just lastly, as I finish, another program that we run is called the Gap House, and we opened this up 2 years ago for girls between 16 and 19. Girls who, once again, come from family situations where they haven't learnt living skills, where they suffer from eating disorders, low self-esteem, and they come into a home for a year in an environment where they're loved. But can I tell you, the real key to this home, and it's probably my theme today if you haven't picked up yet, is once again surrounding these young women in this home with just love and families. And so every girl who comes into this program, she gets her own set of grandparents. She gets her own family that will have her over once a week for lunch. She gets her own mentor who comes in. And we work a lot, with group sessions and the psychologists and other issues. But the greatest impact on their life that brings the most healing and restores them back into society is just simply the love, which Evan spoke about as well. And so, and using, once again, that older generation to engage. So I think as we look forward into going forward into our city and looking at some of the issues, all is not lost as we can help re-engage some of our older generation with our younger people. And so that's just a little bit of the picture of what is happening in our city with young women, and we enjoy working with many different organisations across Toowoomba. So thank you so much for your time today.
I might see if there's any questions, just so that you can head off then. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any questions for Letitia while she's kind enough to stay? There's one up the back. Not sure if we have a...
Hello?
There we go.
Oh, good. I'd just like to wonder, you're doing such a wonderful job, and I think it's just very good. Have you thought of including the other, you say you're a Christian based, have you thought of including the other religions that are in...
Yes, no, we're open to anyone being involved, and we do have other people from different walks in life, so yeah, we're not exclusive by any means. Yes, that's why I'm here today, to engage with you all. We're not an exclusive club.
Any other questions? Being no further questions, can you please give Letitia another big round of applause? Thanks, Letitia. Good to see you. Quite an extraordinary group, and just the Bella magazine alone, when you consider that Letitia used the words building bridges quite often through her presentation, and it's no coincidence, I guess, that that's one of the themes here today. So thank you very much, Letitia. Our next panel member to speak is Laura Ryan. She's the manager of Toowoomba Refugee and Migrant Support. Once again, another sponsor of today, or supporter from Trams. She's got a very distinguished accent, ladies and gentlemen, so sit back and relax and enjoy this. She can talk for hours and it just goes away. So let's give her a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, Laura Ryan. Thanks.
Thank you, Geoff. Hi, everyone. First of all, I would just like to thank the Venerable Master Chin Kung and Mr. Hanif for kindly inviting us along to be involved today. I really appreciate that. As Geoff said, I'm the manager at Toowoomba Refugee and Migrant Support. I've been with the organisation for 2 years now. Prior to working there, I worked at Department of Housing for a number of years. My first experience of trams was when I visited as I was trying to gain a better understanding of the supports that were out there in the community for refugees. As through my work at Department of Housing, I was seeing more and more clients coming from a refugee background. So the first time I went to trams, I distinctly remember walking out the door and saying to my colleague, I have to get a job there. And 2 months later I did, so that was really good. I haven't always worked in the community sector though. For many years I worked in the private sector, and I pretty much spent all of my free time doing charity work and fundraising and just different activities like that. So I feel very fortunate now to be able to work in this area, and particularly to be working at trams. It's great to work with a group of people who share the same values. It's great to work with the volunteers who don't think twice about offering their time and their skills, and to work with the people who come to access our service. I think that we're very lucky to live in a city like Toowoomba. The declaration of the city as a refugee welcome zone last year speaks volumes about the people who live here, and trams is a prime example of that. It was formed originally by a group of people in the community who recognised the growing need to support the growing number of Sudanese families who were arriving and settling in the community. That was 10 years ago that trams started. Since then, the community has grown and become more diverse, as we see families from the Congo, Eritrea, Chad, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, and that's just to name a few. We're very fortunate to share our community. Many people travel all over the world to learn about and experience other cultures, and we can learn about them right here on our doorstep. It's not just about teaching new arrivals about our culture here, though. It's recognising what we can learn from other people too. We witness acts of humanity every day at trams through our volunteers who donate their time, their skills and their hearts to the work that we do. And we've got a few in here today. We have people from all walks of life and all age groups. We have over 250 registered volunteers and over 100 active at any one time. They come from all backgrounds, all age groups, the youngest being 15, the oldest 84, and yep, still going. We have people helping kids with homework, teaching parents English, looking after kids in childcare, teaching people to drive. We pretty much try to cover all of the bases. And the commitment that we see and the outcomes and the results are just beautiful. I'm glad that I do go to trams every day and experience the positivity and the warm, welcoming atmosphere that our Toowoomba community members provide there. There is so much negativity in the media at the moment, and the ripple effect of things that are happening overseas is quite significant. I see it almost every time I log on to Facebook when another friend surprises me with a racist or often at the moment anti-Islamic post. But as I say, when I come to work each day, I'm rewarded with witnessing the kindness of others. And it's not just the volunteers and the staff, it's seeing the clients look out for each other. I've seen a group of men who have helped out single mums of large families by tidying up their gardens and mowing their lawns before they get a house inspection. I've seen a lady who speaks Swahili bring a Dinka-speaking lady to trams. Neither of them speak English, so there's very little verbal communication. That's like Geoff mentioned before, but you can still recognise each other's needs and help out where we can. It's these small acts of kindness from so many people throughout our community that makes Toowoomba the welcoming city that it is. I think that a lot of negativity that we witness in the world today comes from fear. And that fear often comes from ignorance, fear of the unknown. And I'm not suggesting that people are intentionally ignorant, but you know how the world is these days. Everyone is busy. There is always too much to do and too many places to be, and many people just don't have the opportunity to learn. As I mentioned before, we're very fortunate to have the opportunity living in our multicultural city to learn firsthand about the other cultures and to know that we can live together with no need for fear. Our community is full of altruistic people who are kind, compassionate, who are generous, who help people, who share, and who are understanding. I hope that the only way that our community changes is through the growth of those characteristics. Toowoomba is a prime example of humanity. We should all know and remember that acts of kindness, no matter how small they seem, make a huge difference to the world and the lives of people in need. And it's important to remember that each of us can make a difference as soon as we decide to. After all, that's how trams came about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. And Laura will be staying for the duration, so she'll be able to take some questions. And I encourage you to write those down if you indeed have some, so that we can have some questions from the floor, which will be very good indeed. It's interesting. Laura talks about our multicultural society. And I think. Nothing exemplifies that more than we go through the Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers and you see the multicultural groups that are now involved in the Carnival Parade, our 65th this year, with the Fallon Daffa winning the parade this year as the most colourful group involved. And I was very fortunate to travel in one of the last vehicles along our parade route and seeing the various nationalities that are lining our street watching the parade was really quite humbling. When you can see that we can all work together, and certainly Pure Land plays a significant role in leading us in that path, and we thank them for that most sincerely. Laura also talked about the media and the negativity that's out there. I was fortunate last week to spend some time with Venerable Master, and he spent a considerable amount of our meeting time talking about how we need to portray positive images through the media. And I did question on how we can possibly do that. And of course he has his own learnings, a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the afternoon, and the suggestion might be that we control the media a little bit better in that fashion. But it is very difficult when you're talking with media, and of course their comeback line is always that sensationalism or negativity often sells the media. So it is a challenge for us, Laura, and you've certainly highlighted that challenge there today with your presentation. Can you please give Laura another round of applause? Our next panel member to speak comes from the MDA, the Multicultural Development Association. She is Leah Percival, and she's a wonderful person for us in our region as far as multiculturalism is concerned. Can you please give Leah a big round of applause?
Thank you for having me here today. As Geoff mentioned, my name is Leah Percival and I work for MDA. MDA has been here in Toowoomba since 2011. I'd like to first start by acknowledging our traditional owners whose land by where we gathered today, the Jayabal and Jarawar people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. MDA comes from a place of the deepest respect towards our First Nations people in having survived and endured the historical injustices of colonisation upon their land and people. Australia's First Nations people hold a unique role in Australia and the world. In 2008, MDA adopted a reconciliation strategy in recognition of the First Nations people of Australia, as well as ensuring that all new arrivals are provided with education about our Aboriginal people, along with our opportunities for direct engagement. In speaking to today's topic, Strengthen the Bond of Common Humanity in Toowoomba, I'd like first to touch on MDA's own core values and mission, as they have a direct bearing on the way that we approach our work here in Toowoomba. At the core, we believe that Toowoomba, and more broadly, Queensland's future success will be enhanced by our cultural diversity and our work in focusing and helping newcomers to the region find their place to shine. We are a specialist multicultural agency which has grown into a vibrant community of members, paid staff, volunteers, clients, partners and stakeholders with the same goals of strengthening multiculturalism in Queensland and of full participation and equal opportunity for refugees and migrants in our community. We work towards an inclusive and united multicultural society which values cultural identity and which provides welcome, safety and pathways to full participation for refugees and migrants. We provide services and programs of support and development to individual refugees and migrants, their families and their communities. We enable successful settlement, we empower individuals to establish their own pathways, and we facilitate new and emerging communities in the process of establishing their own core voices and their own contributions to our community. We promote multiculturalism to enable increased levels of interaction, understanding and acceptance of cultural diversity across the whole community. And we advocate to decision makers and service providers to achieve stronger policy, program and service settings aligning to our visions and for the rights and hopes, aspirations and needs of our clients. Oops. My apologies. There we go. MDA across our sites work with over 5,000 people annually from diverse backgrounds, language groups, religious groups and from very diverse post-arrival to Australia experiences. At times we work with communities that have experienced conflict, war and have witnessed horrific experiences. Our work is based on foundation of human rights and anti-discrimination policies and practice. In our case management, we engage with individuals and families in understanding their aspirations, hopes and dreams and their existing skills, capacities and resources, with starting from building on that addressing needs and issues that might arise through settlement. So part of this process is being part of our client's journey, talking with them about their story, where they come from and what are their dreams, and what is their sense of hope and belonging here in the community of Toowoomba. We ensure that cultural, spiritual and language needs of all of the people we work with is met. By working with the community members from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, this adds value to our organisation. It creates an inclusive environment and strengthens positive relationships with the local community. It also brings new perspectives and encourages people from different backgrounds to link with our services. An example of this was working with a new community group that came around 18 months ago when we had a change in the refugee arrival population by immigration. Through coordinating a meeting with our key stakeholders here in Toowoomba and having immigration attend Toowoomba's location, we discussed our township, what our current community was and what the service providers were able to offer to new arrivals. And through this process, we as a community were able to identify a new process for immigration and plan the arrival of Afghan community. Following this initial process, it was key that we then researched this community and prepared for our services. In researching these communities, we're having to have people from diverse backgrounds. We see them every day through the doors of MDA. There are a few things that we had to consider before they arrived. The first thing was important to look at the various demographics of this community, understanding their needs and consulting with community leaders locally. In doing proper research, it meant that we were giving the community what they actually needed, and each community has a different culture, opportunity and challenge that needs different responses. Training our staff. So even before we began working with people from different backgrounds, it's imperative that we train all of our staff, from paid staff all the way through to volunteers, in cultural awareness, and we offer them ongoing cross-cultural training. This cultural awareness and cross-cultural training helps avoid misunderstandings between clients, staff and volunteers from diverse backgrounds. We create a welcoming environment. And at MDA we do this in a few ways, where we display a welcome sign and a what's on activity sign, in several languages in the reception area. We make sure that our receptionist has qualifications and skills in working with people with poor English skills. We use images that are culturally appropriate in our posters and our program delivery. And we display photos of our staff and volunteers around the walls of the waiting area and consultation rooms, displaying the activities and events that we've all attended together as a community. We take the effort to learn people's names, even if the first time we can't pronounce them correctly. And we also take time to learn from one another the simple greetings in each other's languages, such as the hellos, how are yous, and how are you going. When involving people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds from our organisation, we're always aware and respectful of their religious and cultural beliefs. This may mean rethinking whether our events serve alcohol, thinking about what types of meat we serve if we serve meat, being flexible around prayer time so we don't plan our meetings or events that may disrupt these proceedings, and being mindful of our clients who are participating in Ramadan. One key program at MDA is social inclusion, and this is delivered to our clients in a number of avenues, being through life skills sessions where we provide them with education forums on the law of the land, the gender equality, rights and responsibilities and respects here in Australia. We do local orientation for newly arrived people, provided through cultural support workers who link them with social avenues and bridge that cultural gap for the new community understanding their new home and their new local area. We also hold a number of events and activities that the clients also coordinate with us. We work with them on their interests, on their feedback and what programs that they'd like to have delivered to them. And we hold these through examples of Eid celebrations. We've done this through learning about the Australian football and rugby league world. We've had youth fun days where the youth have identified artwork, graffiti work and learning to skateboard. And the fun days of Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers. We've also held Women's Days where the women are able to come together and talk about women's issues, women's questions and worries and concerns they may have and be comfortable in talking about that in this setting. These events also support us by bridging the gap with the community, supporting our clients to participate in local events from the early stages of their arrival and engaging them in the wider community. This has an amazing impact on their friendship circles and their connection to Toowoomba as their new home. To facilitate social inclusion and engagement, we support the people we work with to build meaningful social connections with their own community and with the broader local community. This then enables both our new arrivals to have a closer interface with the cultural expectations of the local community and also engages the local community with understanding of new arrivals. We recognise that the common factors influencing all of our lives is around a sense of belonging, being engaged, something to do and being able to contribute. Every person we work with has so much to offer and the willingness to be actively engaged in the community is overwhelming. We recognise this and ensure the new arrivals and communities are supported to be involved in early stages to feel part of our community. An example of this is the Afghan Women's Catering Group. We've recognised their skills and we're engaging them to the broader community to support them. The aim is to provide them with opportunities to become involved in small-scale enterprise development, hopefully leading into an improved participation within the industries that they've identified. So we work with them to develop their product base. We talk about seeding support, identifying the unique skills within their own communities and developing an appropriate marketing strategy. We now have a group of Afghan ladies delivering a number of catering options and their skills and their learnings of the Australian world and the challenges that come with that has been explored. We've also held Toowoomba Women. This celebration was held in regards to the diverse refugee background and the resilience and the resourcefulness that these women have shown in providing nourishment and security for their families in a challenging new terrain with a new language and a completely unfamiliar cultural environment. MDA paid homage to these more recently arrived women in Toowoomba and the region who have further enhanced our Toowoomba culture of nurture, nourishment and the rich and vibrant traditions that they bring with them. The Toowoomba Women was an opportunity for young women from a diverse background to tell their story of how they've come to settle into the Toowoomba region. The event also profiled the important work that MDA and our partners and our stakeholders here today supported these new settled communities to achieving a safe and sustainable and independence into their future. Walk Together is another event that MDA is actively engaged with. This is a national campaign that we're at 1 p.m. on Saturday 25th of October. People in cities and towns across Australia will walk together in a national statement of solidarity with asylum seekers, refugees and other new Australians. This annual event displays the strong connections across Toowoomba's community services and key stakeholders who all come together every year to coordinate, facilitate and walk together on the streets of Toowoomba. Last year, the Mayor, Paul Antonio, declared Toowoomba a refugee welcome zone, and we were the third city in Queensland to achieve this. I welcome you all to come along on Saturday the 25th of October, starting at 1 o'clock at the Village Green on Ruthven Street. We're all aware that settlement is a journey of finding hopes and making new connections, but it doesn't happen in isolation. From a local community, from the political environment. To achieve successful outcomes, the key is in strengthening the connections between the divides of language, culture, gender, ethnicity and religion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah, and I can speak firsthand in regard to the Afghan women catering. We had a function of about, I think there was about 40 people or thereabouts, and the Afghan women we employed to cater for that function, and the meal was absolutely spectacular. But more importantly, it was a chance for me to talk about MDA and the role that they play in our community to some people who had never even heard of it. And I think that's what's empowering, and what's empowering about today is that it's all right for us to sit around here and talk about these things, but we need to get the message out there, and that is the next challenge. That's what I was talking to Jonathan Inkpin earlier. That is the next challenge in this vision of a model city of peace and harmony. So thank you very much, Leah, and certainly the 25th of October is something to lock down in your diaries for 1 p.m. to be down at the Village Green. Can you please thank once again Leah Percival? So we're down to two. 2 to go. We're doing very well. How good have the speakers been so far? Fantastic, haven't they? Really good. Great spread. So well done, Hanif, for what you've done there to put these together. Our second last panel member is the Human Services Chief Operating Officer, Human Services, Lifeline, Darling Downs, South West, Queensland. Maria O'Keefe, ladies and gentlemen, please give Maria a big round of applause.
Thanks, Geoff. And I'd like to acknowledge the Venerable Master, who certainly came to our organisation last week, and a lot of my staff were in awe at meeting the Venerable Master, so thank you very much for your attendance at Lifeline last week. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are meeting on today. My personal and professional experience started off with Aboriginal people in the state of Western Australia, and I learned a hell of a lot there as a fairly young and green social worker about the relativity of ways of being and how that is such an important lesson for acceptance of common human needs. It seems to me that not everyone wants to be like us. I've just come back from a trip to Spain and Morocco, and it's quite overwhelming to travel overseas in countries that have very, very different ways of being and recognise that not everyone wants to be like us. Many of the people that I travelled with, Toowoomba women, were quite astounded that people lived like they did, and I suppose I was astounded too. But that's the way they chose to live, and it's not our way, and yet it is right for them. I think in Toowoomba we do have a sense that we are privileged, that we are lucky to be living here, and we are, and this is what suits us. But we mustn't forget that there's a relativity of social and cultural ways, and not everyone wants to be like us. But in this community we are obliged, I think, to accept the different ways that people have. Now, in social work and other people who work in the human services sector, there's a bit of a Bible called the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Many people, even not in that sector, will have heard of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, I suppose that was taught to us in social work a long time ago. And I suppose as I've gone through my professional career, I've come to realise that it can be rather too prescriptive at times, because it talks about having your basic needs met first, so housing, clothing, food, moving on to relationships, self-esteem, affirmations. Now, I think we interpret that in a particular way in Australia, and I'm aware that in other countries and for other people, there are very many different ways of prioritising human needs. I've had examples of people going on hunger strikes. What does that mean for Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Spiritual states of being, fasting, religious observances, standards of housing, expectations of happiness and affirmation, a sense of duty and a sense of harmony. They all play around with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in that many different people have a very different understanding of what's important in their life from what we might have here in Australia. And what I think today is about is recognising that even so there are different priorities, there is a common humanity. And that is a lifelong journey in understanding exactly what common humanity is and what it can be for all of us. There have been some books written about what are the common human needs, and none of them, to my mind, are very convincing. I think for each of us, we've got to work through what is our understanding of common human needs. In my work now, looking at my job for 10 years in child safety and for 2 years now in Lifeline, and working closely with the police force during my time at child safety, there are areas that are problematic. When you bring people from other cultures, other communities into Toowoomba as refugees or settlers or humanitarian entrants, two areas become problematic because I suppose one of the reasons why people come to Australia and to Western countries is because we have a considerable standard of living and we are happy to share that with other people. But I suppose the trick comes in still honouring their ways of being, while at the same time expecting people into our community without expecting them to be like us. Certainly, laws concerning child protection have been problematic in the work that the State Department does and its relationship with refugees from countries in Africa. Their understanding of parenting is very different from ours. Their understanding of the roles of parents, grandparents, communities, children, teenagers are very different from ours. Not worse, not better, just different. So one of the things that we worked through, we met with the Sudanese elders week after week up at our Lifeline's Long Street premises. And Roberto was involved with us in those days. And we knew that we had got some common ground when one of the Sudanese elders said, aha, so child safety in your community is like uncles are in our community. In our community we have the mother's brother who will make sure that the kids are okay and the marriage is happy. So when you get that aha moment, when two cultures can see a transition, a crossover, a commonality, I think that's where the essence of respect comes from. You don't have to be like us, but we have laws that you need to obey. What does that look like in your culture? What does that look like in our culture? And that's really important work. And I think in the Carmody inquiry into child protection that finished up last year, similar questions were being asked about Aboriginal children. One of the key questions that Carmody asked is, who is the parent? Is the parent biological mum and dad, or is the parent the community? Is a parent the street? Is a parent the aunties and uncles? Like, finally, who is responsible for kids? And that's going to have to be increasingly, I think, in Australia, a relativistic discussion. While we have certain laws, there are ways of meeting those requirements for every community, and it's up to us, I think, public servants, NGOs, politicians, to be clear about what that margin is. What do we need to retain and implement, and how do we do that sensitively and with relativity? And I really want to thank the other agencies who have been presenting today, because they provide the foundational acceptance of new groups into our community. So thanks MDA and TRAMS and the university. And that's probably all I want to say at this stage. I've been given the 4-minute, 3-minute, 2-minute marker. So I might hand back to Geoff at this stage. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maria. Well done. Thank you very much, Maria. Now, that was a great lead into giving the police a big rap as well, working with them. So it's a great lead into our final panel member. Ladies and gentlemen, please reserve your biggest round of applause for Sergeant Scott McGrath. Oh, a few wolf whistles.
Thanks, Jeffrey. So where's the minute marker? I didn't even see where it was. Where is it? The chap in the middle here. Oh, down here. Okay, I've got it, because I would have missed that. Just go on, I've got 5 minutes. Go. Okay. 5 minutes, wow. 10 minutes. That's what you told me before. Okay. Just a couple of our speakers have really touched me personally, and have also indicated to me some of the things that I do as a police officer, and particularly Letitia talking about sexual assaults against women. That's one thing that I like to advocate about and stand up to say that men in our community have no right to behave that way. And I don't know where they form these beliefs or these actions, because nowhere in our society is a place or is it mentioned that you can commit these acts against women. So I think the more men that stand up and show leadership that is not how we treat women in society, the better. So I just wanted to reinforce what Letitia said. I also took on board what Sophie said about Googling how to do a good speech. I learnt today I should have Googled how to do a good speech. So putting a group of random photos together and hoping you can link them is probably not what is mentioned in how to do a good speech. So forgive me if some of these slides are a bit random. We were looking at strengthening community and building bridges, and I certainly looked at it from a perspective as a police officer. And I did Google how do we strengthen communities or make strong communities. And there's pages and pages and pages of things on how to build strong communities. So I've just put slides together on a few of those topics. So I'll head through those. What are we up to? Queensland Police Mission. Okay. So building relationships is one of the key roles, I think, as in a lot of organisations and our community. So up here I have our mission statement. There's a couple of things about stopping crime. That's what the boss wants us to do, and the community. But down the bottom there we have that key statement about building relationships with the community. So certainly as police officers, if we don't have connections and relationships with our community, we cannot do our job, or we can't do it effectively. So I'll just slide through. So common vision is one thing they did talk about on the internet about building community. And up here I've put our district plan in there is written, build relationships across the community. I've thrown up here some examples that the Regional Council has about making this place a good place to live and work and enjoy the community. And I've also placed up here our vision that we're working with the Pure Land College on, Toowoomba, a model city of peace and harmony. So a common vision and working towards those visions is a key component. Okay, so this slide was about working together or appreciating people from different backgrounds and recognising that everyone in our community can contribute. And this slide here is as a goat and a horse helping each other out to get something to eat and working together, achieving greater things. Providing equal opportunities, okay, for all people. In my work particularly, I meet a lot with people that haven't had the opportunities that other people have had. And it is difficult for some people from some of the backgrounds they come from and to make movements forward and make achievements in their life. And it makes me appreciate what I have in my life, whereas I have had opportunities that they haven't had. So I think providing equal opportunities is another key component, and we can all assist in that. Developing strong, positive relationships between people, organisations and groups. As we are today, but I think taking on Geoff's words, going out after here today and spreading that into our community is very important. I think one of the things I value a lot about my job is doing this, is being able to go out and make relationships and build connections with the community. I really enjoy that. I suppose I've been known to be able to talk a little bit. My wife says when we go out shopping, she doesn't want to take me because I stop and talk to several people, and that extends our visit to the shops by half an hour, maybe more, because I talk to so many people. I remember when I was a junior constable in Cardwell that I went to get the mail, and the sergeant sent me out to go up to the post office to get the mail, normally a 10-minute job. I think it took me about 3 or 4 hours. And he said, "Where have you been?" I said, "I'm doing community networking." I'd been talking to different people all the way back from the post office. So I think it's an attribute that sits well with my work that I do. So the internet also, and all those research things that I looked at, go through a whole range of things that we should look at as a community to build and strengthen our community. So addressing injustice, righting wrongs, removing barriers, positive interactions, being welcoming. And that little thing there, being welcoming, talking to other people from other cultures, I learnt from a Sudanese gentleman that in his community that he came from in Sudan, when they get a new person come to their community, they provide a meal for them. The first interaction with those new people in their community is providing a meal. They take it to them and give it to them. And I felt that was so positive. I make a point of trying to welcome my new neighbours if I get new neighbours. And on one occasion I hadn't had the opportunity or found the time to go and meet one of my new neighbours, and in the first night they were there, they had a dog, and it barked and it barked and it barked and it barked and it barked, and I didn't get to sleep. So my wife sent me over because she felt that was more preferable, whatever. So I went over, and I sort of was asking them if they could get their dog to be quiet, and they were fine with it, and they tried to quieten the dog down. But I felt that was probably a more negative interaction. My first interaction with those people was not the best interaction. Had I have taken a leaf out of the Sudanese community book, I might have been over there with a meal, and then I could have said to Joanna, "Please, could you keep your dog a bit quiet?" I learnt from that person to try and make those positive interactions very early. And combating discrimination was the other one. So here comes the random bit. Is just some slides with different ways police engage with the community. So a whole range of things there we've done in Toowoomba. Just a quick slide up the top demonstrating some of the multicultural police we have in other areas of the state and here in Toowoomba. Okay, so community leaders, showing leadership. Very important part of our community. We have a number of leaders here today. There's a couple of people on there that I have as leaders, but are leaders of our community. And again, a multicultural sort of photo with some of the leaders within our organisation that help connect us with communities. Okay, police dealing with adversity. This is something we deal with every day in our communities, and adversity is a challenge sometimes. It can bring communities together, but here, Toowoomba's quite well known for the floods we had and things like that, so that brought community together in many ways. Even though it was a devastating event, it did bring community together. Okay, I wrote on this slide, can you read that? If you can read that, what that says, you're doing better than me. On the how to do a good presentation, it probably says check your slides before you actually present. So this is about police caring for others. So that's one of our primary roles. And I know that when police join the service, one of the things that they look for is why do you want to join the police? And they look for those key words that I want to help and contribute to my community. Okay. Yeah, I can see the wrap-up sign. Okay. So, just quickly to wrap up, in the words of Desmond Tutu, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good when put together that will overwhelm the world. And this is a slide about police not having a great day. So, but it has some relevance. One thing I do try and promote is that we can learn from our mistakes. We need to learn from our mistakes and change our behaviour and move forward. We all make mistakes. It's like these police did on these days, but we need to learn and make sure we don't do them over and over. Lucky last slide. Okay, so Toowoomba is not my community, it's our community. So together I think we can make the difference. I'd just like to thank you for listening, but most of all, thank you for the contribution you all make to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. So haven't we learned some things this afternoon? I've just made a few little notes that I'll sum up with in a moment. But just, are there any questions from the floor? There's one right at the very, very back. If we can get that one. Here we go. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you'll be fine.
Those people who know me are quite familiar, like and protect. I found all of you absolutely fantastic to listen to. I was wondering about, we're talking about trans and the experience of fear. Okay, people can hear me clearer now. We're talking about the experiences you've had with fear and the general public responding to fear. I was just wondering if you could elaborate a bit more on that, in part because outside the trans environment, I know plenty of other people from different religions who have been on the receiving end of that fear and of ignorance. And some people have been publicly humiliated and even worse in rather nasty ways of trying to basically put down the religion of another person and things like that. I was just wondering how you dealt with that.
Well, fortunately I don't actually have to. As I mentioned throughout my speech, I feel very fortunate to be involved at Trams. At Trams it is a very welcoming environment. It is a very warm, safe. There's no threat, there's no feeling of threat. What I was trying to kind of suggest was that I see through the media that there's a lot of fear and that's a result of ignorance, but unfortunately I can't answer your question very well because I haven't had too much direct exposure myself, but the impression that I get from what I see in the media and I see online and on Facebook and things is that there must be a great deal of fear throughout the world for people to feel so threatened and have such negative views against things that really don't have to impact them at all.
Thank you very much, Laura. Any other questions?
We are preaching to the converted. We should be out there giving our message an alternative way of dealing with the world situation of today. Spaceship Earth and civilization itself has hit an iceberg that will sink us all before long. We have to come up with alternatives. We have to communicate to the people in power that there are different ways of going about in resolving the world situation, and it stems right here from Toowoomba upwards to the Commonwealth Government and the world and the United Nations. Rather than spending $500 million by the Royal Australian Air Force in bombing the daylights without a head, we should spend $500 million of giving that money to the people of the Middle East, and the situation there would suddenly come to disappear all at once. Peace would prevail. We have to find ways of alternatively solving the world situation and not sitting here congratulating each other on how good we could be. We must do the good now, out there, from now on. Thank you.
I don't think anyone would disagree there. In fact, Sophie, with her bamboo story, may have even suggested that what we're doing here is perhaps watering that what she referred to as dirt, but in actual fact, hopefully, we are watering something that will grow and spread pretty quickly right around the world. So I think we all have to play a role in that, and we're certainly doing it. Are there any other questions from the floor? Here's one right up, making your work, Mei-Ling. Here she goes, dodging through the tables. Can you give Mei-Ling a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? She's been tremendous. She's a wonderful lady and part of Pure Land here. There she goes.
Hi, this is for Maria. Okay, so you're working with different cultures. You're from a child safety background, so am I. How do you see, being with Lifeline now, is it going to be possible to change? You don't want to change the culture of the new people coming to Australia, but how do you work with them in changing, working with them on the pattern, the circle that is continuous? We have that with not just Indigenous, we have that with white Australians as well, with all cultures here in Australia, where you've got the pattern, the continuous pattern. How do you think that we could work to do that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. My 9 years in child safety was a lot about that very point, and my role was partnerships. So particularly with the early days of working with the Sudanese community, we contracted the university to do some studies about ways of parenting, how Sudanese people understood parenting, because we need to understand from them. The university used Sudanese people to carry out those interviews, to collect the data, to put the stories together. That then became a piece of work that we took to the child safety personnel. We worked the other way as well. So we got, at the Harristown Church, we had the whole church congregation, and we had to have, I think, 3 or 4 interpreters that day because of the number of languages that the Sudanese community were using. And we talked about what child safety is, what our project was about. So we were tried across all stakeholders, all players, to gain understanding and acceptance. And I'm sure it still goes on today, but that was a 12-month project where we used a Sudanese project officer, Abraham Mabior. So in lots of ways we tried to move people forward through a new understanding that it wasn't here to punish people who'd come from a different culture about their parenting. It was a journey where we needed to understand how they parented, but they needed to understand the role of the law, really, in Australia, the law that protects children as priority A1, number 1. Now, I believe that project was very successful and still has ramifications in Toowoomba today, but it was expensive, it does take effort, it takes commitment from the highest right down to the lowest level to ensure that that process can happen, and I think it's never finished. I think we need to keep on doing that with older communities and newer communities.
Sorry. And how can you see that possible with a faith-based principle?
Certainly, as I said, with the Harristown community, we went to the Harristown Church where many Sudanese people went, and I think that was supported by the Anglican community at that time. And I know that other mainstream religions in Toowoomba do a lot of good work with those communities. So it certainly is still, I think, a faith-based missionising approach. But I'm also aware that there are new organisations that don't profess a religious connection. I'm not sure about MDA and some others, and they're doing excellent work as well. Now, Lifeline is a Christian organisation because of our founding. In 1975, I think it was, the Ministers Fraternal decided they needed a telephone counselling service, which is still the beacon for what Lifeline is and Lifeline does in Australia. So there is a role for faith-based organisations in spreading that message, but at the same time, and I think most of us have learnt, all churches have learnt in Australia, that you can't be exclusive. Church work has to include peoples of different faiths, new faiths, no faiths. and be respectful of their religious observances, but still be able to find the common humanity through that sort of work. So it's not easy, and it's I think you were right, Hanif, we can't pat ourselves on the back and say we've done it, we're doing great. We are a microcosm, and there's still a hell of a lot more work to be done in that. Thank you.
Very good. Time for one last question, if there is one. It's Andrew. This will be good.
This is a question probably to all the panel and possibly even Venerable Master Chin Kung. We're quite well aware of the globally of the ageing society or the ageing world that we're living in. The age group is the age over 65 is getting larger and larger and larger, and all those people have an absolute tremendous wealth of knowledge and things to give back. I'm just wondering, and maybe this is already being done, so it's just more like a question to everyone, or even for people to think about into the future, how we get them more involved in such organisation as I've attended here for the first time.
I'm happy to open it up to the floor. I think Laura definitely talked about, I think your oldest there was 84 years old, helping through trams, and I'm sure other agencies would have a similar situation. I even volunteering for police have over 65s as well. But would anyone like to comment any further on perhaps how we can do that?
I fully agree, and a number of programs I'm aware of in Toowoomba, Flexi School have a mentoring program where some of our people from the communities, particularly we're short on men, but are encouraged to go down there and be mentors for young people. TomNet have an organisation to support older men in our community and engage them in activities with the community. We have our volunteer program. So I fully agree with you. There's an untapped source of knowledge and skill there that we really probably don't use to the best of what we could, but I know our organisation's aware of it.
Evan's just got something.
Yeah, I would just like to do a plug here for chaplains, because that's what chaplains do. They work with children, they work with people who are in need, people who are being abused, people who are living in families that are suffering. That's what school chaplains do, that's what primary school chaplains do, that's what tertiary chaplains do. So we're working with the people, and when we're doing that, it's not just helping them cope, it's training them to be better people and to accept themselves for who they are, not accepting themselves for what other people want them to be, but for who they are. And then that gives us a chance then to accept others for who they are. So I think that a lot of things have been done behind the scenes that we don't know about. Thank you.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, that draws us to a close. Can I just quickly sum up in order of speakers? Evan, we learnt that we can give without loving, but we can't love without giving. I think that was significant. From Letitia, we heard about city women and all the ways that they're building bridges. From Laura, from trams, we learnt that they are recognising what we can learn from others. And I think that was a pretty powerful statement. From Leah, it was all about inclusive and united with MDA. From Maria, it was a recollection or an assessment that others may not be worse, may not be better, but they are just different. And I think that was a pretty powerful statement as well. And from Scotty, it was all about building relationships with the community from a policing perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great panel. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. Can you please give all our panel members a big round of applause? Thank you very much. And can I just conclude quickly, Hanif, if I can, just by thanking Venerable Master once again for your hospitality here today, for hosting all the visitors. But from a regional council perspective, can I just say that our region is a much stronger, much more fulfilling and a much better place for us all to live, learn, work and play with the influence that Pure Land, and in particular from the Venerables and from you, Venerable Master, have on our community. So we thank you very much.
We thank the council and the panel of speakers for their presentation. Once again, just a round of applause for them. Thank you very much. Now, you have spent a fairly long day with us, and we feel that it's good that you can share with us something. Now, what we're going to do is we request of you to stay where your table where you are, and we like to hear from you that just discuss among yourself this topic on how do we share common humanity in our nation and world. If you don't want to take that up into the nation and world, then just focus on Toowoomba, then we can take that as a start. Now there is some papers and pens around there, so you spend about half an hour or so, just discuss on this, and after which we will get from the table anybody who wants to say one point, just one recommendation. So it's very much also the opportunity for all of you to interact among yourselves and share notes and build that relationship that we have already developed. Thank you very much, and I leave that to you, and I'll come back to you later. Please continue with that. Thank you.